Yes, Fear Thy Neighbor. That was, of course, Scream at the Sun, and that voice screaming was Clint Howry, who is on the line with us. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, and you?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful, obviously. Got to talk to Mike Orlando tonight, now I'm talking to you, so, other than
that
having...
was a great interview.
Why, thank you. And other than having Anne Hathaway sitting naked on my lap right now, I don't know how it could get much better tonight, so... Right
on.
Well, thanks for taking the time to chat with us. I obviously just discovered you guys just in the last week or so. Very impressed. Great stuff. And I want to talk about the album and everything else. But before we get too deep into that, because outside of the Minneapolis area, a lot of people don't know who you guys are yet. So maybe if you can give us a little backstory on how the band came together and everything like that.
Sure. Well, it actually started as just a writing project with me and Matt Johnson. We had some songs we had to get out of our heads, and we ended up incorporating the help of a couple of my ex-bandmates from Grace Point, Sam Van Moore and Stefan Radzilowski, and we got the drummer from Solna, Zane Peterson. We recorded the album, and shortly after that, the album started garnering some interest. So we put together a live band with the new lineup. We've got Kevin Lindo beating the shit out of the drums. We got Tom Brown slapping the bass. Wayne Pelican, who was our guitar extraordinaire, and then of course Matt Johnson is leading rhythm, and then myself doing the vocals. And we're just doing what we can. We're putting a live show together, and we're going to go out and rip some heads off.
So, and for you, where did it all sort of start for you? I mean, did you just wake up one day and say, "Hey, I think I want to be a singer," or was there a concert, a song?
I was 8 years old. I saw Kiss. And I saw Gene Simmons spitting blood and blowing fire, and I said, "That's what I want to do." That's no shit.
That's where it all started for me too. Paul, I wanted to be Paul Stanley, so.
Fucking right. Yeah, right. So yeah, it's I think about 15, I started playing in bands, and it's been that way ever since. And full speed ahead.
When did you discover you had the voice for this?
Well, I'm still always discovering that. It's an ongoing process. It's always a learning curve, like with any instrument. I think it's just is what it is, and I just get up and yell, and hopefully some of it's in key, and the rest is what it is.
Well, certainly what you guys have done so far is great stuff. Tell me a little bit about making the album. How did the writing process work in the band? Was it just the two of you putting the songs together, or did you work?
It really was. It really was just me and him doing all the writing. It was actually a really natural, really great process. Matt's a really good guy. He's got some really great ideas. And we just meshed really well together. We come from a lot of the same background, a lot of the same musical genres, and at the same time, we both come from a few different ones that really added some cool flavor to it. And the new lineup we got with Kevin, Tom, Wayne, Matt, and myself is really adding some either newer elements, which I'm so excited.
So you're already looking forward to the next recording, right? getting the other flavors in there. So
for sure. I mean, we're gonna stick with this. I mean, we've got kind of an old school meets kind of new school sound that we really kind of want to hold on to, but there's some aspects that are really starting to shine out through this new lineup that we got. That like I said, I'm really excited. Really excited.
Can you expand on that? What some of those new elements are that you're sort of feeling and hearing in the band? Or
yeah, I can. Kevin brings this really heavy, aggressive feel on the drums that was kind of missing. And this is not a rip on Zane in any way, shape, or form, because he's a great drummer. But Kevin just bringing this new feel to it, and Tom on the bass has just got this great, steady, low end that just really makes the guitar sound even heavier. And Wayne is kind of bringing more of this technical finesse that is just going to add all these great little nuances and flavors to the music, which, just wait. That's all I got to say.
Now, for you, I mean, do you start with like a melody in your head, or does it start with a guitar riff usually? How do the songs come to you?
Every song is different. The writing process for me and Matt were, he'd come up with a riff and we'd hammer it out. And then, sometimes immediately when he would play a riff for me, there'd be vocals already forming and melodies in my head. But each song's different. you know, some come real naturally. You know, this sounds really weird and kind of cliche, but like there's even a couple of them that, you know, you wake up and like, you know, it was a dream, you know, it's insane, you know. Or you're just walking through the grocery store and somebody says one wrong word to you, you know, and the next thing you know, you got miscreation written, you know. You want to rip somebody's freaking head off and go to town.
Well, and that was going to be my next question is, lyrically, where does your inspiration come from? You know, obviously there's not a whole lot of cheese factor going on there. It's not all about rock and roll and whatnot. You've got some depth to what you're doing.
Well, I really appreciate that. I really do. That's a big compliment. Again, each one's different. You know, I try to write in a style when it comes lyrically to kind of leave the songs, I don't want to say vague, but just open enough to where the listener can also help paint their own picture. So I'm not forcing them into, you know, so I'm not preaching at anybody. So I'm not saying this is what the song is about and you must, you know, also have the same feeling. I want them to kind of paint their own picture, you know, let them own it also. Does that make sense?
Right. Absolutely. And you hear that a lot from a lot of artists that it's like, this is what I was thinking, but I don't want to put that out there. I really want people to hear it and build on it themselves and come to their own sort of thing. I mean, fear thy neighbor. I mean, that could be as literal as, you know, the psycho living next door, or it could be about prejudice, or it could be about, you know, the government and Al Qaeda and who knows.
Exactly. So, you know, or you could be the neighbor to fear. You know what I mean?
It could be. Yeah, it could be the whole Dexter thing, the dark passenger inside of you. So,
he was such a nice guy until we found 50 bodies in his basement.
So, well, let's talk about a few of the songs, because, I mean, they're all really good, but you guys have been pushing a few of them specifically. And the first one we were just talking about, Fear Thy Neighbor, as soon as I heard that guitar thing, I was just like, okay, loving this. You know, where's it going to go? And
isn't that a great intro? Yeah, Matt came up with that. It just grabs you right away.
And unlike a lot of a band, because we sort of went through that thing when grunge came out in the 90s, everything just sort of got gray and ugly and everything, and then in the 2000s, the aughts as they call them, was just sort of trying to refine everything. Now people are really starting, everything got so goddamn extreme, you know. Every part of metal was like, okay, we can't sing anymore, we have to scream and shout and growl, and you can't understand the lyrics and everything because it has to be more extreme than it used to be. And we're finally starting to dial that back and realize the extremeness doesn't have to be how loud or how bizarre we get. It can be in just finding new ways to expand within the music. And you guys are one of those bands that you do have that modern edge where you have some of that newness to it in terms of what's been going on over the last 10, 15 years, but you really do still dig into the old stuff and are starting to bring some of that back, and it's great to hear bands doing that. And there's a lot of melody in there without giving up the balls, you know?
Right.
And I just took a 14-mile walk around the block to get to that point. So my apologies to everybody that had to endure that.
No, I think that was very well said. Very well said. And I really do appreciate all the kudos that you give to us in that aspect. I mean, I think a lot of it is just natural because, you know, especially some of the older influences. I mean, we just grew up with all that stuff. You know, I was listening to Mike Orlando talk about his influences and stuff. Those are all our influences too, you know. I mean, we grew up with this stuff. I mean, you can't talk about metal without talking about Sabbath, man. You know? Right.
It's Sabbath, Kiss, Zeppelin.
Maiden.
Exactly. All those great bands.
I mean,
So who were some of the modern influences that you guys sort of look to a little bit now?
Oh, wow. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I could go on and on and on forever and ever and ever. I mean, and I don't know how modern I would say, you know, but I mean, some of my biggest influences in the last 10, 15 years, I mean, like Life of Agony, River Runs Red, I just thought was a phenomenal album. Caius, I absolutely just love Caius. John Garcia is one of my favorite vocalists, just that dirty, sandy desert.
Right.
You know, it was amazing. Acid Bath, man, come on, give it up, you know. Just good shit. Lamb of God's just out there, you know, kicking ass. But, you know, there's so many new bands coming out that are doing exactly like what you're talking about, like what Adrenaline Moth's doing and stuff. And I'm just so excited that, you know, we're doing it at the same time. We're part of this. And, you know, there's radio stations like you that are supporting this. I mean, because you guys are literally the backbone for, you know, playing this stuff, you know, getting this out to people, getting the listeners. And I can't thank you enough for having us on and, just doing what you're doing.
Well, absolutely. And it's sort of for bands, it's become, it's changed. There's no more that mystique. There's never going to be another Led Zeppelin because that mystique is gone,
right.
The mystique of the rock star.
Yep.
Everything is DIY these days. It's all spread out in social media and everything. And I think the flip side of that is you've got internet radio now who are playing the things that terrestrial radio won't play. They won't touch it. And I think it's as important for us to have these DIY magazines, radio stations, all this stuff to match what the bands are doing if we're going to keep rock and roll and metal alive. So it really is an alliance that we have to just keep breathing life into, if you will. So, but
a secret society.
So, I want to come back. We'll come back and talk more about that in a few minutes. But right now, we are going to play, by request from you, we're going to play some Acid Bath, a little bit of something that you're inspired by. This is Pagan Love Song by Acid Bath, and we'll be back in about 5.5 minutes to talk more with Clint Howry from Scream at the Sun. Brother. Crank it up, people. That was Acid Bath here, Metalholic Radio. Still have Clint Howry on the line from Scream at the Sun. And we're going to play a couple more tracks from their album, Chant of the Misanthrope. What's the story behind the name of the album?
Well, Chant of the Misanthropic. Misanthropic is obviously a hatred towards mankind and always been kind of an oxymoron to me, because if you hate, mankind, obviously you hate yourself. And there's, we all have our times when we're down on ourselves, or there's people we don't like, and so on and so forth. So I just kind of thought of this album. I mean, it is, lyrically, it's pretty dark, and it is kind of written by a misanthrope, and if you listen close, you'll see that. And so it just kind of felt natural to call it Chant of the Misanthropic, Well, that's kind of where that comes from. And
without digging in, like I said, we want to keep the lyrical content sort of up to the people to decide what they get from it. But in terms of putting the songs together, obviously, inspirationally, there's things that happened. Maybe you could give us one or two stories behind some of the songs on the album and how they sort of came to you in terms of the content.
Sure. Some of them are just observations, and I have this ability to put myself in kind of a position of being in somebody else's head and looking out. So I'm not saying it's always right, but it works for writing good lyrics. Some of them are personal, miscreation being one. I got ripped off by some people, ended up taking some repercussions upon them physically, and ended up doing some a little small stay in jail over it. And that's kind of where that song comes from. Literally what I wanted to do with them by the time I got out, and these guys literally ripped off everything in my home and got to keep everything.
Holy shit!
It's pretty crazy story. But some of the other songs, Everything Returns to Dust. I always wondered what it'd be like to be death himself. Coming to somebody's home, coming to in front of somebody as they're begging for their life, or maybe begging to be taken. It's that's kind of where those lyrics come from. Scream at the Sun is actually based on, I've always been kind of intrigued, and I don't mean intrigued like I thought it was a good thing, but by the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I mean, that was pretty detrimental to those people there and stuff, and that's kind of where the basis of that song comes from. Obviously, I mix it, with everything with other things. Scream at the Sun is, can also be, a futile gesture of, screaming at the sun, sitting out in the sun, blistering and burning. I mean, there isn't much you can do. It doesn't make sense to sit there and do that. But, but I always try and mix. I always try and have, one or two sides to it. So you may have one meaning, somebody may have another one. Hopefully there's a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth, and so on and so forth for each individual.
Okay. So tell the truth. How many song ideas from this album came while you were in the shower?
Every one of them. No, I'm just kidding. Most of them were when I was on the toilet. No, I shouldn't have said that. But no, they literally are. I don't know when they come to me. Sometimes I'll have a melody in the head, and literally you could just be walking down the street and oh yeah, or you're reading a good book, or listening to another good album, or even some classical music can, be really inspiring. It just, you never know, man.
So I've always noticed for me that when riffs come, they always come when I'm in the shower. I don't know why. That's like my riff zone. So I figured, I wonder if other writers are like that. They get in the...
See, a lot of vocalists are, because, the shower's warm. It moistens up the vocal cords. It gets you relaxed and stuff. But never heard of guitarists.
Yeah, it's just that's just, for whatever reason, when I get in there, that's when the riffs start coming to me. I don't know why. And I've written complete songs in the shower, and then I get out and I'm trying to dry off and figure out how I'm going to get it recorded down and all that stuff. And of course, by the time I get around to it, I've lost it all. So, obviously you've had better luck than me. But so Scream at the Sun, which came first, the song or the name of the band?
Actually, it was the song which inspired the name of the band. It was literally the first riff that me and Matt, we had just got done with a project we were working on that didn't go very well. And we were, the two left over, and we were actually in my recording studio, and handed him a 7th string, and he played the first riff to Scream at the Sun. And by the time he was, he jumped in his car and was driving home, I already had the first verse and chorus written and sitting and waiting for him in his email, and it just made sense.
Well, and that's one of the things it's exciting, but it's also sort of, it makes you melancholy, is now you can do so much through technology. I mean, you guys don't even have to be in the same country to write a song together, because you can just plug it into a computer, throw stuff down, email it to each other, and put an entire album together without ever being face-to-face. But in some sense, it also sort of steals some of that raw, organic nature, and you miss the warmth of the analog and everything. Do you hope at some point, someday, to have the money and all that stuff to record an old school in the studio analog album like that?
Well, that depends. I mean, we used a lot of outboard gear on this album. The cold, sterile, in the box type thing that everybody was hashing on 10 years ago and stuff doesn't really exist anymore. Because everybody's got a front end. They're using, some universal audio preamps or this or that. And then literally just sending the signal back in, and you're actually just using the, let's say Pro Tools to edit and stuff like that. Maybe some of the plugins. But most of the engineers that I know, they're all using outboard gear. The software editing is a must. I mean, it just saves so much time. The cold, sterile thing kind of comes from, 10, 15 years ago, and it really did suck. But now it's changed so much. We could get into technicalities and go back and forth about, how wow and flutter from, the tape dragging across the magnetized head added this warmth, and it did. There's certain harmonics that add certain frequencies that, really do and did warm stuff up. But I mean, these days it's not the cold, sterile beast that everybody thinks it is.
Of course, the scary side is, for every band like you guys who's putting together some really good stuff, there's 10 bands out there that are kids in a garage that can barely play their instruments, that are recording one riff and just copying and pasting over and over.
No copying and pasting here. We, everybody comes to the table knowing their parts. Wait, I take that back. There may have been a cut and a paste here and there, but so no auto-tune was harmed in this recording.
I want to talk a little bit more about the DIY and social media stuff in a minute, because it is so important to bands these days. Before we get back to that real quick, I want to make sure, so I don't forget, everybody needs to go out and check out screamatthesun.com. Check out the website, hear some of the music. If you buy the album, they're autographing it for you. And everybody, it's so important to support the bands, because if we keep stealing the music, there's not going to be any rock and roll left to worry about. You'll be stuck with Justin Bieber and, those idiots that are on American Idol. So
right. But if you do steal it, share it. Let your mom listen to it.
Yeah, but just enough to entice them to buy it, right? So
that's right.
But it is so important now, because you guys do so much yourselves. Even bands who get signed to labels are doing so much of their own promotion. How much social media do you guys get involved with? I mean, you guys spend hours on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff, or
you have to these days. Yeah, we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Reverb Nation, MySpace. I mean, you name it. It's anything you possibly can. It's a weird beast. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, and this is probably, you know, the oddest album I've ever put out because of the social. But it's amazing. You know, it really is. It works. It connects people, and they can get immediate gratification. You know, it's amazing.
So,
it really is.
For fun, before we get out of here and play some more Scream at the Sun, tell us something about you that people might be surprised, some unusual hobby or something. What do you do when you're not rocking and rolling?
Wow.
Besides the day job.
I am a jack of all trades. There is, you know, anything. I thirst for knowledge constantly. I'm constantly want to learn. I constantly pushing myself. I constantly want to try something else. I've kind of got like mental ADD or ADHD. You know, I just got to keep going. So you name it. I build cabinets. I build electronics. You know, I'll start a business and you know, go paint the next week. It's insane.
Well, given your lyrical content and your thirst for knowledge, if you could sit down one night and spend the evening talking with any one person, past, present, alive, dead, who would it be?
Oh, wow.
Mine's Ben Franklin, so, you know, he was like a rock star for his time, but, you know.
Oh, man, you got me there. You know what? I would have said years ago that I'd love to sit down and bullshit with Gene Simmons, but, man, that mystique is kind of blown. You know, I'd probably like to sit down and rap with Jim Morrison a little bit.
Be a cool one, too. I musically, for me, I'm not sure, you know. I mean, it's like there's so many great people. You know, Paul Stanley was my idol growing up, but, you know, I know so much about Paul these days, I don't know that he'd be the one.
Right.
I might have to go back and look for something deeper than that, but, you know.
Einstein would be pretty kick-ass because he was so far ahead of his time, man. I mean, we're still trying to figure out some of his theories and shit.
Exactly.
That would be a trip.
And that's why I picked Franklin, because not only did he create so many great things and write so many great things, when you look back at where he was at that point in time, he really was like this party animal rock star, but nobody really knows that about him. So I figured that'd be an intriguing conversation. All right, so before we get out of here, our absolutely pointless question for the day, coming out of winter right now, it's probably still winter where you're at in Minnesota. What's your favorite comfort food?
Jameson Irish whiskey.
That's one of the basic food groups by itself, right?
That's an easy one.
Oh, man. Clint Howry, Scream at the Sun, screamatthesun.com. The album Chant of the Misanthropic. You guys got to get out and listen to it. Check it out. You can even request some of the songs on Metalholic Radio. Look forward to an article going to be on metalholic.com in the not too distant future. And of course, we're hoping Clint will come back and talk with us on occasion and keep us up to date with what's going on. I appreciate you taking the time, and we are going to play a couple of tracks from Scream at the Sun getting out of here, starting with Everything Returns to Dust, and then maybe the song you were telling us about, Miscreation. Clint, thanks so much, and we will hopefully talk with you real soon.
Thank you. Love the station. Thank you so much for having us. We all appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon, and we'll see you soon.
Take it easy, brother.